This is a cultural war that is going to stay with us. We're dealing with dark forces. The Biden family might legitimately be the most evil family in the history of politics.
If George Floyd was found anywhere else, this would be a drug overdose.
This is just another act of third world tribalism. Islamic or not, these people just don't belong here.
All right, I think first of all, I should explain why you're looking at a different studio today, why we have a different background. That would be Noah's Ark. You should be reading your Bible. What's exactly happening? Well, the reason I've been gone, the reason I've been absent, I'm sorry, I know you're missing your I'm right fix. The reason all that stuff has been going on is there was a flood, okay? A flood as in a water main broke in the building and flooded out the building. I am hearing all kinds of reports on we'll be back Friday, Monday. I've heard never. I've heard the building will be demolished. I have not laid eyes on our old studio yet. I so miss it. I miss my old chair and everything else, but that's why it looks different. It probably sounds a little different. I got a microphone here. We just kind of had to cobble something together because we know you needed some I'm right in your life. So here we are, happy to be here. Gonna look a little different, sound a little different. Too bad, so sad. That's the best we can do. Now let's focus on something great. Sounds bad, but it's great. It's June. It's the month of June. It's a month that the demonic communists decided a long time ago should be known as Pride Month, which is just gay month. Everyone knows what it is. It's the month where we're used to being barraged by every sports team, restaurant, all of corporate America, everybody giving us the old rainbow waterboarding. Everything has to be gay and gay night this and gay night that and drag this and tranny this. And it's become a month in the United States of America where we celebrate loudly degeneracy. We admit everyone else has to celebrate degeneracy. So if you're a decent human being, you probably hide your kids in the house until July 1st. It's been bad. Okay, I don't have to tell you, it's been bad. I'm positive, as a matter of fact, what is it, June 2nd, June 3rd? I'm positive that already in a couple days, you've probably already been mad about something, some company coming out, doing and saying something. I got all that. And Pride Month is going to keep going for quite some time. I'll explain a little bit. But before we get into that portion of it, let's take a moment and acknowledge this. The fact that Donald Trump won the election in November means the White House is not lit up in rainbow colors. Let's acknowledge that corporate America, yes, they were participating loudly in Pride Month as often as possible during the Biden presidency, but it was corporate America in conjunction with the United States government screaming this crap all the time. And not just in America, remember. The LGBTQ demon weirdness, it became America's foreign policy. Remember when we had that story under Biden's presidency, Rahm Emanuel, ambassador to Japan, was getting himself in some hot water with the Japanese because of his loud LGBTQ activism? We're trying to make Africa more gay. When Democrats take office, they make gay the foreign policy of the United States of America. This guy was a friggin' admiral.
Hello. I'm Admiral Rachel Levine. Climate change is having a disproportionate effect on the physical and mental health of Black communities. Black Americans are more likely than white Americans to live in areas and housing that increase their susceptibility to climate-related health issues. And 65% of Black Americans report feeling anxious about climate change's impact. Through our Office of Climate Change and Health Equity and the Office of Environmental Justice, we're working with providers and community leaders to identify innovative approaches that empower communities to address the health consequences linked to climate change.
That was an official with the United States government under Democrats, and he's gone now. And then let me explain something before we go any further, looking back on where we were and acknowledging that we have a ways to go. Before we get to any of those things, let me acknowledge something here. understand that this day, it's been done with intention by the cultural Marxists, with intention. It's not an accident they chose, for instance, the rainbow. The rainbow is famously God's promise to us after he flooded the earth, Noah's Ark, all that other stuff. Afterwards, the rainbow was a gift to mankind from God as a promise. Do you think they picked the rainbow by accident? No, they picked rainbow to spit in your face. Remember in Easter time, what the communists did? They made it Transgender Visibility Day. There are 365 days in a year. They could have picked any one of those days. Instead, they picked the day we celebrate the resurrection of Jesus Christ. None of these things are done by accident. So let me just remind you before we move on, you may not consider this to be a war, but they very much do. Looking back, let's do a little bit more looking back, because these things aren't taking place anymore. And I know we all get frustrated from time to time with what isn't being done, and I wish we were doing this, and all that stuff's very, very fair. Let's again smell the roses for a moment. Remember monkeypox? All of a sudden we had a gay disease come out, and everyone knew right away that's exactly what it was. And instead, the White House invited, yep, that's right. Well, here it was.
Sure.
The confusion that exists, the misperceptions.
Yeah, so I think this virus transmits through very close skin-to-skin physical contact, often in the setting of sexual exposure. But there are other mechanisms for its transmission, including if you touch objects that individuals who've had monkeypox touch, or if you have prolonged exposure to respiratory droplets. With that said, signaling to people who are in the gay, bisexual, other men who have sex with men communities, and also transgender people who have sex with men, that it's really important to have awareness that it's circulating in the community is really a critical part of the messaging, while not generating inordinate concern and really focusing on the infection as linked to an identity. So it's just an infection, it's not linked to an identity, it just happens to be in the social network.
That was in the White House press room. Jeez. So let's celebrate that those days are at least over. Before we get to the ugly stuff, let's celebrate those days are over. Now to the ugly stuff. We always have to keep this in mind, that we are in an ongoing struggle that will be ongoing for the rest of your life, for the rest of my life. It doesn't matter how old you are. This cultural war we're in, it'll be taking place. We have to fight it, but don't think to yourself, we're an election away, we're this away, we're that away. That's not how it works, because we're dealing with dark forces. I mentioned how purposeful these people are. Do you think it's an accident that this stuff has taken over children's programming?
Families! Hi, families! It's time for a pride parade. Families marching one by one, hurrah, hurrah. Families marching one by one, hurrah, hurrah. This family has two mommies, they love each other so proudly, and they all go marching in the big parade. Baby blue, pink, and white represent transgender people, because every letter in LGBTQ plus is equal. And black and brown represent the queer and trans people of color. Doesn't it just fill you with pride, showing who you are on the inside? Wave that pride flag up high, be true to you. Show your pride, wave those flags, everybody.
Hi! Elmo and I wanted to share that everyone is always welcome on Sesame Street. This month and every month, we want to uplift and celebrate our LGBTQIA plus family, friends, and communities.
Yeah, that's right, Miss Ariana. From our Sesame Street family to yours, happy Pride! Elmo loves you.
They're after your children. Many of them have just come out and admitted we're after your children. I remember the gay San Francisco men's choir flat out singing it. We are after your children. They are after your children. There's a reason the Oreos are rainbow, Sesame Street is rainbow, Nickelodeon is rainbow. There's a reason the communist in your public library puts all the gay books front and center in the kids section. They are after your children. Why? Because they're demonic and evil doesn't stop being evil because it lost an election. It just doesn't. This is a cultural war that is going to stay with us. It's still all over sports. It's Major League Baseball season now, and maybe you think Major League Baseball is getting better, and it seemed like they had been getting better, but I mean, did you enjoy the Mets game? We have to continue to fight this battle. We have to be loud about our disapproval of these things. I am very grateful that we do seem to be getting bolder and louder about things. We are letting them know we do not approve. But as you noticed, they're still moving forward. That's because they haven't experienced enough pain yet. We have to make sure we visit that pain on them with their wallets. Wallet pain. You want to know how they really think about you? They tell you when they think they're not on camera. How about this guy for the Washington Nationals?
I am on the community relations team, so like corporate social responsibility.
The director of community relations for the Washington Nationals of the MLB reveals unethical behavior within the management of the Washington baseball team, including religious discrimination against a starting pitcher.
One of our pitchers, dude Trevor Williams, he is very Catholic. The Dodgers had a group out to the stadium who were drag queens who sometimes dressed up as nuns. He went on like a social media like, this is wrong, this is my religion, you all are mocking it. Because of that, we don't use him on social. Like when they're like, is a hot dog a sandwich? And like the players come up, you know what I mean? Like we don't ask him.
They think it's a war. They're very purposeful about it. They're not sorry for anything they've done. They are going to keep going. We have to keep going too. All that may have made you uncomfortable, but I am right. The Bidens were evil. Speaking of the Biden administration, I think Jill might be the top dog in that evil family. We'll talk about that in a moment. Before we talk about that, let me talk to you about your cell phone provider. You're paying too much and you're paying a company that hires foreigners. When's the last time you had to call customer service at one of the big carriers? Did it sound like that guy was from Wyoming? Didn't, did it? Because they sell out Americans. That's what they do. This has become corporate America now, and we have to be more patriotic with our money. At Pure Talk, you're on the same network. I'm not asking you to sacrifice coverage, the exact same network. But Pure Talk hires Americans. So when you go to puretalk.com/JesseTV, not only will you save an absolute fortune, you'll patronize a company that cares enough about America to keep jobs in America. And I think that's pretty important, don't you? puretalk.com/JesseTV. We'll be back. The Biden family might legitimately be the most evil family in the history of politics. And I know that that's saying something. I know as soon as you say something like that, people start thinking, what about the Clintons? What about this? What about that? These people are positively soulless human beings. And I think the head of the Biden family is not Joe Biden. Joe Biden's obviously not even a functional adult. He's not the head of anything anymore. He doesn't have a functional head. I think that Jill Biden is the true evil witch who leads the Biden family. Now, Jill Biden, of course, surprise, surprise, wrote a book at a time when the American people, they want to forget about the Bidens. And Democrats in the country, they want the American people focusing on Republicans right now. Hey, look at the gas prices, look at this, look at that. They don't want the Bidens back in the news. They don't want any focus on Democrats right now. But Jill Biden doesn't have any love lost for the Democrat Party since she got run out of the White House. So she not only wrote a book, she's out there doing the book tour thing. And it's just every time I watch her speak, I am reminded of something that I talked about with you a lot during the Biden presidency. I was usually talking about Joe, and I said he's just simply the biggest liar in the history of the presidency. And I know they all lie. I'm not saying that. I'm not naive. They all lie at least a little. You shade the truth. You this, and they all lie a little. But Joe Biden would stare you right in the face and tell you water wasn't wet. He would tell huge, easily verifiable lies, and he would just do it over and over and over again. Just more comfortable with lying, I think, than anybody I've ever seen in that office. This is the Joe Biden press tour.
Were you horrified as you saw it unfold?
I wasn't horrified, I was frightened because I had never, ever seen Joe like that.
With the COVID, with dealing with everything we have to do with, look, if we finally beat Medicare.
Thank you, President Biden.
Before or since? Never.
Or since?
Yes, or
You've
since.
never seen him like
Never.
that?
No.
What happened?
I don't know what happened. I mean, as I watched it, I thought, oh my God, he's having a stroke. And it scared me to death.
Scared her to death. She'd never seen that before. But here's what's so wild about that lie. You've seen that before. I know all the normies in the United States of America may have been shocked when Joe Biden stumbled his way through a debate, but you had watched Joe Biden speak like that publicly about 1,000 times before that debate night. You've seen him do that on camera. That was the Joe Biden that was hopped up on God knows what they were injecting him with and getting him spruced up and nappy time and everything else to get him just right so he can function for a half hour on camera, an hour on camera. What did Jill Biden see at 9 o'clock at night when Joe Biden's trying to find his way to the bathroom? What did Jill Biden see in the morning when Papa Joe was trying to crawl out of bed, remembering where he put his dentures? How bad of a state did Jill Biden see her husband in? And yet, she not only kept him there, she loudly encouraged him to run. And it does crack me up, the whole revisionist, I was scared to death thing. That's weird because I remember this from after the debate.
Joe, you did such a great job. You answered every question. You knew all the facts. And let me ask the crowd, what did Trump do?
What a witch. And even talking to him like that, knowing what a disaster it was. You did so good. Like a 1-year-old potty training. That woman, the Bidens are friggin' dark. And she was asked about that moment, by the way. Listen to this.
I'm his wife. I've got to lift him up. So we go to the next event, and I'm thinking, what do I say that will lift him up? That is true. I want to say the things that are true. And so I said, you answered every question. My mind's racing.
That's a pretty low bar.
Well,
my job's to lift him up. No, her job is to lie. That's how she sees it. She lies about everything all the time, the same way Joe Biden lied about everything all the time. She continues to lie about him to this day.
I can remember getting the diagnosis, and it was shocking.
Do you think that someone, when he was in the White House, should have discovered it, given him a test?
Well, the doctor said that according to the American Urological Association, that men over 70 don't need a PSA, a blood test anymore, because it's a slow-growing cancer. I have to say, Rita, I do feel we had amazing care in the White House, but somehow that was missed.
Did you ever see signs that he was falling into cognitive decline?
No.
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 Truly?
No.
They just lie like they breathe. The biggest liars in the history of American politics. All right. Well, there's more trouble in Minnesota. Liz Collin is going to join us next and give us a good look at all that. Before she does that, let me tell you about chalk, about making your entire life better. You want to be better at work, better at home, better on the weekends, better mood, better energy. Well, natural herbal supplements from chalk can do that for you. We're talking about clinically tested 20% increase in your T levels in 90 days. You're drinking estrogen. T levels are at a free fall. That's why you're out of gas all the time, in a bad mood all the time. But natural herbal supplements from chalk can have you right and have you right quickly. Go find out what I'm talking about. Get a subscription at chalk.com/JesseTV. We'll be back. Well, I've got kind of a good news, bad news situation for you here, although it's a Minnesota story. So in general, it kind of always ends up as bad news. It is too bad. That Minneapolis Police Chief Brian O'Hara, total dirtball, he resigned. Great news, right? It would be, except from what I understand, worse dirtball took over for him. So it doesn't look like the land of 10,000 lakes is righting the ship just yet. Joining me now, the great Liz Collin, senior reporter, Alpha News, and she has a new documentary out this week called Minnesota Mao, which we will get with eventually. Okay, first of all, Brian O'Hara. Spike my memory on this guy, Liz.
Yeah, Jesse, that was quite the introduction. Always good to see you. And looks like you're steering the ship right behind you there, sir. But yes, another leadership collapse among the Minneapolis Police Department. So just to catch you guys up to speed, so it's last week when Minneapolis Police Chief Brian O'Hara resigned. He kind of became part of the face of sort of the anti-ICE resistance here in Minneapolis, to just refresh your viewers' memories. But he resigned after Mayor Jacob Frey said an investigation found that Chief O'Hara interfered with a probe into allegations involving sexually intimate relationships with city employees. And from what we've been hearing, it's several city employees these relationships happened with. He had 30 complaints on file in the 3 years that he was chief of the city of Minneapolis, which is a very large number. But still, Mayor Frey was trying to push him through to be appointed again in that position. However, this happened quickly after the details were coming out about what took place. But then, Jesse, you had Assistant Chief Kely Blackwell in charge of the department on an interim basis. And now she is out just a week later, and I think it perhaps had something to do with our documentary, The Fall of Minneapolis, and our book, They're Lying, The Media, the Left, and the Death of George Floyd. But this all came out in court actually quite recently in a case brought against us for telling the truth, and that came out in court. But dozens of Minneapolis police officers signed sworn court declarations that Kely Blackwell was in fact lying on the stand. 14 of them said she committed perjury in Derek Chauvin's state trial when she said she did not recognize the technique that Chauvin was using that day on George Floyd, despite the fact it was the MRT, the maximal restraint technique, something that had been trained for decades in the Minneapolis Police Department. And all of these cops kind of came out against her in our case, and I kind of heard through the grapevine that she didn't have much support. So here we are a week later. She is now out, and a new acting police chief has now taken over as they search for someone permanently here in Minneapolis.
Mother of God. It's just, there's a lot to untangle in that. Okay, so the last police chief had 30 complaints. That is actually astounding. Yeah. Kely Blackwell is obviously a dirty commie liar. Now she's gone. Who's the one sitting in? No.
So we have a guy, Bill Peterson is his name, and I will say he's very well liked among the rank and file police officers in Minneapolis, which means you're not really sure how long he will last, because again, the city council has a role in all of this, and Mayor Jacob Frey as well. So I've been hearing that a lot of people don't in fact want this job when you have a city council like you do in Minneapolis, primarily controlled by socialists. The DSA has complete control of the Minneapolis City Council, and law and order doesn't seem to be, the top priority of that police department as a result.
Okay, Liz, let's talk about Derek Chauvin for a second, because information continues to come out, and everybody with any knowledge of this case, which obviously you have a ton of, marvels at the fact that somehow this guy is still in prison. We know that George Floyd died of an overdose. He didn't die from the technique, as you just elaborated, that was trained into Derek Chauvin. How is he still in prison? What is this?
There's a lot of layers to this. He's kind of on his last chance, wants a fair trial. I think that anybody with an open mind can look at what took place in Derek Chauvin's trial and realize the manipulation happening behind the scenes, sort of paraded into this courtroom each and every day, a jury that's not sequestered, and, kind of a mob mentality that was going on in Minneapolis. But there are so many things, and I'm always encouraged where more people are talking about this case that we tried to point out, frankly, years ago here. But you're right, Dr. Baker, so this is the Hennepin County Medical Examiner, in his own words, Jesse, within 12 hours of George Floyd's death, he says that if George Floyd was found anywhere else, this would be a drug overdose. He did not watch the body camera video first before performing an autopsy. He's the only person to perform an actual autopsy on George Floyd. And you have the words that George Floyd died by cardiopulmonary arrest. Those are the first words that appear on his death certificate. That's a heart attack. And then we have complicating law enforcement subdual added days later when they go ahead and release this autopsy on the same day that George Floyd's family releases theirs. They hired this expert. It's basically the George Floyd's family. This expert says, George Floyd died from what you see on the video, which really sort of flew in the face of Dr. Baker's findings. But obviously that was the narrative that the media glommed onto.
All right, let's shift gears and talk about, well, here's a little trailer for your new documentary, Minnesota Mount. Here it is.
Governor Tim Walz. Governor Tim Walz.
Tim Walz.
Tim Walz.
Tim Walz.
Governor Tim Walz of the great state of Minnesota.
I lived in China. I've been there about 30 times.
Tim was snapping up dozens of copies of Mao's Little Red Book. It's not just a political treatise, it's the daily devotional of the Chinese Communist Party. The inscription on the inside is, Mao's words bring us joy.
She's bringing us a politics of joy.
They're trying to steal the joy.
For communism to work, you have to erase the country's identity and history, and that's what Mao did. Tim Walz is doing it here.
I'm not going to sit by and allow this state to descend into communism. If it costs us my life, like it's cost me 3 years, then so be it.
If more people would stand up when confronted with these kind of dictatorial and tyrannical policies, we'd all be better off in the long run.
Liz, there's so much I want to get into about this, but let me start here. I still can't get over visiting China 30 times. I haven't been anywhere 30 times in my entire life. I don't think I've been anywhere 10 times. 30 trips to China? How does he explain that?
Well, that's what's interesting. You have a media here who hasn't pressed him on this issue. And for the first time, we're hearing from someone who went with him on one of these trips and knew him quite well. But in this documentary, it's really going to explain, I think, the Maoist connections to Minnesota Governor Tim Walz for the first time. You're going to hear from people you've never heard from before, and kind of this bizarre behavior that took place while he was in China. Also connecting the dots really to all that has happened on his watch here in Minnesota, Jesse. So we spend quite a bit of time recapping his last 7 years here as governor of Minnesota, even and prior to that in Congress. So I think this is going to be really eye-opening. Talks a lot about, his kind of admiration, fawning admiration is how other people have described it, for communism. And he's been pretty open about that, erasing the history of Minnesota, different things that he's done. You can see him changing the flag there as seen from the documentary as well. So I encourage people to check it out. Thursday is the release date. There's a reason for that, Jesse. That is June 4th, the anniversary of Tiananmen Square. Also, Tim and Gwen Wall's wedding anniversary. And she has said in interviews previously that he picked that date because of the Tiananmen Square anniversary. So I guess riddle me this as to why that would be. But coming up on Thursday, you can see it for free, minnesotamao.com. Also on our YouTube page, if you just click subscribe, Alpha News MN is where to watch it.
minnesotamao.com picked the anniversary of a bunch of students getting mowed down by the Chinese Communist Party as their anniversary. What a lovely couple. Liz, appreciate you very much. Come back soon.
Thanks, Jeff.
That's something. Well, we mentioned George Floyd a couple times there. The UK has their own George Floyd situation, and it's just one of the most horrible, heartbreaking things. And I feel obligated to talk about it, but it's just such an ugly story. We'll talk about it with Conor Tomlinson in just a moment. But speaking of horrible, paying 20-30% interest on anything is horrible, and I don't want you to ever have to do that. Please don't do that. Do you own a home? And do you have high interest debt? Okay. All right. I know it feels like you are never going to get your head above water. Barely make the interest payments, if that at all, and you just have accepted the fact, I'm just going to be in debt forever. Don't do that. Don't accept that until you get a hold of American Financing. American Financing has been helping people just like you wade through the never-ending high interest debt and come out the other side. Go look them up. Go look up the reviews. They know what they're doing. Maybe you think, my story's worse. That they've heard it all. They've been through it all. Go to americanfinancing.net/Jesse or call 866-891-2821. We'll be back. Well, the story I'm about to talk to you about with Conor Tomlinson, it's so ugly and sad and enraging that honestly, I had a moment where I considered not even talking about it. It's one of those ones, it just kind of drags you down, but it's important we do talk about it. It's important we do reveal just how truly sick and evil so many forces in Western civilization now currently are. Maybe you've already heard of it. You probably already have. Henry Nowak, I think I'm saying that name right. Young man got stabbed, bleeding out. Cops show up, deny the fact that he's been stabbed, place him in handcuffs, and watch him bleed to death. This is a little bit of it.
Has anyone been hurt other than him?
Yeah, me. He's grabbed my brother. He's took my turban off, started grabbing my head.
Are you injured?
Yeah, I've got swollen eye, little bruise.
Alright, just step back a little bit for me.
I've been stabbed.
You've been stabbed? Whereabouts? Don't think you have, mate. Hand?
I can't breathe.
Put the hand in the cuff, mate.
This is like numerous times this has happened to us. We've been walking, we can't multiple times we've had people racist
90 foot.
nothing happens.
He's saying he's been stabbed, so
Where
let's
is it
just
you
check
think
him.
you've been stabbed? In the face? Oh no, but we have to check, don't we?
What's your name, mate? At the moment you are under arrest, and that's for assault, so you do not have to say anything, may harm in defence if you do not mention when questioned. So we'll talk to you later in line of court. Anything you do say may be given in evidence, alright? It's going to be sick, I think.
His pupils aren't even reacting.
And he's gone. Joining me now, Conor Tomlinson, host of Tomlinson Talks on YouTube and Substack. Conor, it's so freaking awful. I've just been heartbroken about it. Can you give us the story around this, the context? What am I even looking at here?
What you're looking at, Jesse, is the consequences of anti-white racism being institutionalized by the British police. And this has been going on for years, even before George Floyd. But in this particular instance, this is 18-year-old Henry Nowak, who's a Brit, got Polish descent, hence the surname, and exemplary finance student, born in Essex, was going to a university in Southampton. And he was on a night out. He drank less than the legal limit to drive, so he wasn't even tipsy when he was walking home, when he encountered Vikram Digwa, a Sikh man who carries around a sword Because for some insane reason in Britain, we have a religious exemption for Sikhs to carry around blades. This is despite them fulfilling their religious obligation to wear a little blade called a kirpan on a necklace. Most Sikhs do that, but he had one of those and a whopping great sword on him. And Henry Novak was on his phone to his friends on Snapchat, and so we have some of the recording of the altercation. And Henry Novak said, no such disrespectful thing to Digwa, and Digwa kept saying, I'm a bad man, goading Novak. He then slashed him in the lungs, slashed him in the back of the legs as Novak was trying to flee, jump a bin and a fence to get away. He was recording Henry as he lay bleeding. He took photographs, and then Digwa called his parents and his brother to come to the scene. The mother took the blade and tried to dispose of it, hide it from the police among a series of other Sikh ceremonial daggers at the home. And the brother and the father concocted a scheme as they kept Henry's dying body on the ground to convince the police via a telephone call and at the scene that Digwa had been the victim of a racial attack unprovoked by Novak. He had his turban torn off, and somehow they subdued Novak. When the police got to the scene, the body cam footage played out as you just played. The police believed his murderers with no further scrutiny, even as Henry was writhing on the floor and with his last dying breaths said the famous words, I can't breathe. And they did not follow standard procedure by investigating him for wounds, despite him having 5 wounds to the back of his legs and to his face, as one of the officers points out. For some reason they couldn't see a great big slash between his ear and his jaw. They handcuff him, which again is not protocol, and they drag his body along the gravel. And the last thing he hears before slipping out of unconsciousness and passing away from this world is the officer callously telling him, I don't think you've been stabbed, mate, and reading him his rights because they cared more about the hurt feelings of the minority community that conspired to cover up his killing than the killing itself.
18 years old. All right, let's go over a few things. The slasher, where is he right now?
He is currently sat in prison. He's just been handed a life sentence with a minimum of 21 years. Now that is unduly lenient because this is an aggravated murder charge, and so it has been referred to the Attorney General, who is a lifelong communist, so I wouldn't hold my breath for him abiding by what is in the interest of the British public in this instance, but he is going to sit in prison for at least 20 years. That's longer than Henry got to live. His mother is in prison because she helped dispose of the weapon. Only today were the father and the brother charged. Now bear in mind, this happened in December of last year. So the police have sat on this body cam footage. They've sat on this story for 6 months. They didn't charge the brother and the father with conspiracy to commit murder. In fact, they've only just charged them with possession of a bladed weapon, which presumably their lawyer can then argue is according to their religious exemption. They haven't actually charged them with manslaughter or murder. As for the police officers, one has resigned today. 3 others that were at the scene remain on the force, serving. They're all being investigated by the Independent Office for Police Conduct, but the police themselves attempted to defend their officers before the body cam footage was put out, saying, well, they couldn't have possibly known that Henry was injured. It was dark, they couldn't see any blood. I mean, they say he was bleeding from the mouth. The police officers dismissed his claims that he had been stabbed, which they were compelled to investigate, but of course, instead they were more bothered about the racism that might have been done. And we also don't have the additional footage, by the way, of Digwa and his brother sat in the back of the police car. They were never handcuffed. Henry was handcuffed. He died in police custody, drowning in his own blood. But his killers were never handcuffed, even after Henry had died at the scene. They were sat in the back of the police car discussing the crime in Punjabi and admitting to the stabbing. The police only realised this afterwards because they had an interpreter. The police officers themselves have not been charged with accessory to Henry's murder. They haven't been charged with manslaughter. And the defence the police have provided for not charging their officers is, well, Henry would have died anyway. There was nothing we could do. What you could have done is not made his last few moments uncomfortable. And, by the way, we only have the preceding conversation because Vikram Digwa stole Henry's phone and put it in his pocket. It just so happens that he was recording on Snapchat. If that had not been the case, if they hadn't have deciphered the Punjabi language that Digwa and his brother were using in the back of the police car, it's possible that Henry Novak would have died and his memory would have been soiled by the claims of his killers, that his killers had used a blade in self-defense to fend off a racial attack. And so this entire narrative, anti-racism and white guilt, that minorities imported into our country that are disproportionately responsible for these violent crimes that take lives, that they are the true victims. This entire narrative could have just made Henry another evil, bigoted white person that is keeping brown and black people down, rather than now what I think is an inadvertent martyr to the effort to reclaim Britain's country for British people.
What's the status of that reclamation, Conor? Because Lord knows I'm rooting for you. I know you and I have talked many times about all the problems, and there are many of them, but are we seeing a real groundswell of British patriots who have had enough of this? And I don't even know what avenues you have to take power back from these people, but what's the status?
Well, there's currently a protest going on outside the court, where the killer was convicted 2 days ago. That protest has been somewhat, I hate to say hijacked, but by people who make protests their profession, and they're currently talking about being colonized by Islam. Now, don't get me wrong, I despise Islam. We've discussed it multiple times, Jesse, but you can't neatly put this crime in the box of counter-jihad, because these were Sikhs. Just like in Florida, when Sikh truck drivers did illegal U-turns and killed families, the Indian community, the diaspora online, have been celebrating this. They have been gloating about the murder of a white person by a Sikh. And so this is just another act of third world tribalism. Islamic or not, these people just don't belong here. And so in terms of the political response, I mean, the Conservative Party are a completely irrelevant spent political force, because they brought millions of Indians and Pakistanis into our country committing these crimes in the first place. This morning, Kemi Badenoch, who I remind you is a Nigerian anchor baby, who currently leads the Conservative Party, said, "I don't want to hear about white lives matter." So that's the response from them. Reform UK this morning, Nigel Farage, in a sort of unprecedented act of unwavering alliance with the British people for once, because he's usually afraid of being called racist, came out and said, no, we need to get to a place where white lives matter as much as black lives, and we need to remove DEI from the police force, and the police officers themselves need to face the full investigation and legal consequences for this. And he referred the sentence for being unduly lenient to the Attorney General. The problem Nigel Farage's party have is that I asked their Education and Equalities Minister, Suella Braverman, the former Home Secretary for the Conservative Party who defected over, I asked her whether or not she'll be repealing all of the anti-white DEI laws on the books if reform come into government. She said she'll repeal the Equality Act, which mandates that public sector bodies like the police have to do DEI hiring practices, but she's going to keep the Race Relations Act on the book, which is one of the reasons why the police set themselves up as the arbiters of good race relations in the first place. It's a bit like your Civil Rights Act, Jesse, where the Department of Justice has a community relations department to coach the victims' families, like those of Austin Metcalf or the poor parents of the boy that was killed by a Haitian in Ohio driving without a license. They coach them to have DEI pro-multiculturalism messaging in their victim statements. And the same thing happened with Henry Novak's father outside the court yesterday, where he said, this isn't about racism, this isn't about Sikhism, and Henry was one of the most inclusive men you could have met. Still pro-state propaganda in there. The only person that's been relatively strong on this so far is Rupert Lowe and Restore Britain. He said we need to bring back the death penalty for Vikram Digwa. We need to deport all of his family members, at the very least. And that we should ban all immigration from India. All legal immigration from India must be banned, and much of it must be reversed.
I like this guy already. Conor, come back soon, my brother. Thank you so much.
Will do.
All right. We have a light in the mood that's dark. Next. All right. It is time. Well, it's normally time to lighten the mood here because it's the end of the show, but there's nothing light about what we're about to talk about here. There are certain things that you identify with certain locations. It's just we're all human beings are this way. Hey, whenever we're in this town, we go visit this park or we eat at this place. Everybody knows that New York City is one of the food capitals of the world. Even if you haven't been there, you've heard that. It's one of those places you can just get an amazing meal. So every time I'm in New York City, I try to make my way down to Times Square to eat at the Red Lobster. It's just become a real taste of the city thing for me. Red Lobster, New York City, they go hand in hand. As you can see there on the screen, Red Lobster in Times Square, after more than 20 years of delivering high-end seafood is finally closing its doors. Truly a dark day for America, a dark day for all of us, but we'll get by. I'll see you tomorrow.